A couple listeners suggesting we do tomorrow's show from Jane's new car.
Come on, let's do it.
Many years ago, and Rick
Fun.
Pearson, world's greatest political writer, joins us, best in the universe. Rick, I think you were in a discussion once where you talked about this, talked about doing the show from my car and just driving around town. And then you'd let the guests off wherever they needed to get off, like an Uber. Like I'd drop Rick off at the Tribune, then I'd pick up somebody at the Four Seasons.
That's a great
who happened to be staying there.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
But we never did it.
That was a cool meeting, though.
Most great ideas never happen.
Rick Pearson, as usual, has done it again. You wrote a great piece called Why Did the Biden Campaign Spend Time in Illinois this summer? The obvious premise here, this is more than a reliably blue state. When was the last time Illinois voted Republican for president? Reagan?
That would probably be about, I think, Bush.
Oh, so H.W. Bush won.
Right.
Yeah, Bush won. So, in other words, if Illinois is locked down, shouldn't Biden and Kamala Harris be running around the country getting other things? What's going on here?
Well, I mean, when I looked at what had gone on this summer, starting with Biden unveiling his Bidenomics campaign strategy back in June, Vice President Kamala Harris here 3 times at the span of a month, Joe Biden here last week for a pre-Labor Day rally, and a constant parade of cabinet secretaries throughout the state. It just begged the question. I mean, why Illinois? And talking to some Democratic strategists, they point out that what we've also seen in the national polls is just a kind of a soft lack of enthusiasm for Biden's reelection among Democrats, and a need to re-energize that base. But I think it's also telling if they're getting that sense here in Illinois, where especially where Democrats have had this long streak, if they're getting that sense in Illinois, what's going on nationally as well?
Yeah, I mean, in other words, if blue can't get pumped up here, well, you got a problem everywhere.
Right. So, in some respects, they view this as one kind of a messaging board to try different techniques to try to gin up enthusiasm. 2, what I think is notable is Harris's frequent visits were part of a White House strategy to try to build up her stature against Republican criticism of a not so stellar start as vice president. So she was here also speaking to largely conventions, so that the message would flow beyond just Chicago. And Illinois.
Well, because it's an easy hub to get to. So if they're here, people from other states can come in,
easy
and then
easy out.
And then they take it out.
And next summer, the convention.
Yeah,
the convention's here. So what role does that have to play in all of this?
Well, I think it's somewhat premature about the fact of the convention being here, because I don't think anybody that was at an event where they saw Kamala Harris in August is going to remember that come next August when the convention's actually here. I mean, certainly some of these visits also reflect Chicago as being, normally a flyover state, Illinois, for presidential rallies. Chicago has always been a big money ATM machine for both political parties. And so coming here also provides the opportunity for fundraising and tapping some pretty wealthy donors.
Well, and that, of course, brings it back to J.B. Pritzker. In my view, what do you make of, and what are people telling you, and what's your instinct saying about J.B. Pritzker's money, and does that have anything to do with Biden spending a lot of time here?
That's the thing, and people raise that question, but you have to remember, too, these are federal elections. And so, when Pritzker spends $160 million of his own money to win election in Illinois, that's under state election law, and that people are allowed to self-fund their campaigns. Federal election law has very strict limits on how much money you can give.
But can you give money to a PAC?
You can You can certainly give money to a PAC, but you're not really seeing any PAC activity on the Democratic side, much as you're seeing how all of the Republican contenders have their own affiliated PAC to raise money.
Maybe it's just like Chicago, Nick.
Rick, I can't get it out of my head. The only thing good for the Democrats that has come out of Illinois has been Barack Obama. Everything else is a laughingstock. People make fun of Blagojevich, even Pritzker. I just don't get it. Are they trying to ride out? Is there anything left of the Barack Obama wave that the Dems are trying to ride out here? I don't understand why Illinois would be this beacon.
Well, certainly Obama remains very popular on a national level as well as here in Illinois. And Obama will definitely be, one of these featured speakers at the convention. But you're not really seeing much of an impact on Obama here in Illinois as much as his assigned role will be more in some of these more critical swing states that are becoming fewer and fewer with each election that we have.
Much like the Biden messaging, which, as I've said many times, I think has been awful and just terrible comms team. But much like the Biden messaging, I'm struggling to figure out how enthusiasm, if it does get ginned up here, would be a message that would play around the country. Because wouldn't other states that would be swing states go, well, yeah, of course they're interested in Biden. It's a blue state. Yeah.
Right. No, but you always want to try some messaging with a friendly crowd first and see what kind of reception you get.
I should try that.
Oh, but boy, you just set the ball on the tee, and I'm not going to swing.
Well, that's because you're a friend.
Yeah. See.
Well, and this is a terrific piece. It's at the Chicago Tribune website, chicagotribune.com. But as always, we tell you to get the paper. What'd kill you? Get the paper. Get the real paper.
Well, let me ask this. Do you think they're kind of stacking it up now, all the visits? Because next year they're going to be trying to, be in other markets, maybe some more of the...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's definitely a factor. And the thing to keep in mind is these are, we're very early in a campaign season. And obviously, unlike the Republicans, where you have multiple candidates, Biden doesn't have any real opposition. So, yeah, you go to some of these states. And this is not to say that they aren't going to places like Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. But you go to these early states as just kind of you have the opportunity to do so because, come Labor Day next year, it's unlikely we'll see Biden again after the convention.
All right. I want you to come back so we can talk a little bit more about the Kamala Harris thing. I continue to be amazed that there hasn't been a deep dive as to how poorly the Kamala Harris thing has been handled by her office, by the Biden office, why there isn't more interconnectivity, and why hasn't there been, I'm talking about a 60 Minutes level deep dive on what's going on here when you had a president who came into office who's much older now, and famously told Barack Obama, I'm in every meeting or I'm not your vice president. Why wouldn't Kamala Harris be over his right shoulder? So people had some confidence in her, which they clearly don't now. That story to me, I think, is sitting out there for the taking, and I think it could move some voters in one direction or another.
I think you will see much more of that. And part of it is the White House engaging in trying to counter that narrative, which is something that they, as you said, with their messaging has been horrible, and they haven't done much to counter that narrative. Now, when you have, Nikki Haley basically saying, in her campaign that she's not running against Joe Biden, she's running against Kamala Harris because she doesn't believe that he'll finish out his term. So you have a much stronger Republican focus on the negatives, and the White House needs to engage to counter those. And I think it's very likely that you would see that kind of 60-minute deep dive or some kind of town hall exploration with her to give the White House a chance to counter.
The only person harder to find than Kamala Harris is Fritz Kagi. Is Fritz Kagi on the show today? No, it's still not coming on? Okay, all right. And the other thing I want to talk to you about at some point, too, we're not going to do it today, but J.B. Pritzker may be lobbying for a cabinet position if Biden were reelected to get a little more Washington on him going forward. But you can save that for next time as well because, Rick, you got to come back. There's too much stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. Anytime, Steve. Always at your call.
Rick Pearson, the global greatest political writer in the universe.
Best there ever was.
Yeah, nobody better.
And ever will be.
Go get the paper, read it, and go to chicagotribune.com.